Doo-doo-dee. It's Nandi!
Hello friends, today we're going to revisit Aun'Shi's Legendary Release event. He's coming back around for his second run and is currently a huge part of the game meta. If you don't have him unlocked yet, follow the infographics and guide in this video to give yourself the best chance of success. You'll know by now that I like to keep my videos short and sweet, so I'll leave the outline here on screen. I'll go over what a legendary event is, for those of you who are newer to the game, show you the infographics that I've made to help you focus and tailor your roster growth, give you some gameplay tips and analysis about the best characters to bring, and how to defeat the unique enemies in each section. I'll also leave my Refer a Friend code, which you can enter to earn yourself 100 Blackstone. Everything is time-stamped and chapter marked for you to skip ahead as needed. By now most of you will know what a legendary event is, however there are still newer viewers that come to my channel, so I'll briefly outline what this is and what to expect. Legendary events are special events that tend to run once every 5 weeks and last a week at a time. They are an opportunity for you to really test the limits of your roster in order to earn points and unlock a legendary character, currently the rarest and most elusive in the game. There are 3 sections to each legendary event, and each section has its own traits and restrictions which shape the characters that you can bring along. The idea here is that if you want to succeed and push deep into the event, you also need a fairly deep roster. I see a lot of comments about how people are disappointed with the progress they make every time a legendary event comes around. But please don't despair, these events are designed to be endgame content and recur for a total of 3 runs. If you follow the infographics and tips in my videos, you'll have an excellent chance at unlocking these characters. This slide shows you roughly how big you need to build your characters in order to clear each level. But be aware that results will vary as not all characters are created equal. If you're approaching the event for the first time, you'll need to fully clear 8 levels in the Alpha, Beta and Gamma tracks in order to unlock the character. There are 2 event packs that you can buy to help reduce this requirement to full clearing 6 levels. People sometimes ask me which of the 2 packs I would recommend buying, if they were in the market for only buying one of them. The bonus shipment pack at the top of the screen gives you more event progress, however the bundle contains Blackstone, which is the universal currency that can be used for general game progress, even outside of the legendary event. I can't tell you which of those to get, it's your money and you should spend it how you like. Here we can see one of my classic infographics which show you how many points each character scores in the event overall. It is useful in order to understand, based on your roster, which characters might net you the most points. However, bear in mind that just because a character can score a lot of points, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are amazing in the legendary event, and I'll touch more on this later on. This time around, I've also taken the liberty of highlighting 6 characters who I think will give you a good return on your investment if you bring and level and gear them up. I'll touch more on this later on in the video too. This infographic is an Excel document that shows all of the characters in the game and which traits they can be used in. I appreciate that this is probably pretty hard to see on screen, but don't despair, I have a link to the Google Sheet available in the video description. There you can save and copy the Google Sheet and tailor it for your own roster. I've highlighted in varying shades of green characters who I think will be useful, and I'll go into why that's the case shortly. In this section we'll talk about the 6 characters who I think will get you a lot of bang for your buck if you bring them along. Angrax by now has established himself as probably the best in the game for legendary events. All you have to do is park him next to a spawn point and he will automatically clear enemies with a high enough passive. You can be clever and block the other spawn point with your remaining characters to really funnel enemies into Angrax's lethal claws. Isabella and Incisus fall into the same umbrella healer category. In previous versions of the game, you were able to tuck yourself into a small corner of the map and slowly grind away at on-rushing enemies by abusing Isabella's passive. Now that doesn't work as well for this event, because for the Alpha section you will find yourself facing multiplying grots, and for the Chaos section the Poxwalkers will provide increasing armor debuffs against your team. Still, having a healer is very powerful and allows you to push through in the long and grindy nature of these fights. Shozil is a particular favourite of mine, not just because he is T'au, but with astute play you can set up an army of ranged drones to snipe away waves of enemies. He also happens to fulfill a lot of the higher scoring traits for this legendary event. Continuing along the themes of high scoring characters, Calandus is the highest scoring character for this particular legendary event. Calandus has so many unique and useful traits that he continues to have a lot of value in other legendary events too. Between his Overwatch mechanic and passive ability, Calandus is able to do a lot of out-of-turn damage, which is exactly what you need to push far in these events. Finally, Aleph Null completes the top 6. Aleph Null is affectionately known as the mechanical healer. Not only does Aleph auto-heal itself each turn, but can also heal adjacent mechanical allies by simply moving next to them, as well as having a targeted heal. There is so much value from this little Necron, and I can't understate how valuable it is. The next segment in this video series comes at the advice and recommendation of my friend T'au from the Eternal Nexus cluster. As you climb the levels in each of the guild letter tracks, the enemies you face will become more difficult. Once you hit level 4, you will start to fight against the elite enemies as shown on screen. As you climb to even higher heights, you will start to face unique characters represented by each faction. Let's look at the enemies for each section in turn. Alpha brings the Orc enemies, and the 3 main unit types you'll see are pictured on screen. The Grots and the Orc boys are the mainstay of enemies, and the Grot tank enters from level 4 upwards as the faction elite unit. The main thing to notice about the Orcs is that they all have battle fatigue. That means they all have a baseline 10% chance to flee if one of their adjacent allies dies. This chance is increased to 50% if that ally is overkilled instead. Basically, you always want to target the enemy that allows you the chance to trigger the most adjacent battle fatigue. The other thing to note for the Orcs is that at the end of every turn, each Grot has a chance to multiply if it is fully healthy. For this reason, I personally like targeting the Grots early on, as they are easy to kill targets and I can trigger battle fatigue on the surrounding tougher Orcs with enough damage. Beta brings Black Templar enemies. Pictured are the Initiate, Neophyte, and Initiate Pyroblaster. The most lethal of these 3 is the elite unit, the Pyroblaster, who puts down flame damage in 2 hexes. This applies a flame hex effect, which does 20% maximum health damage to your characters. Now, this damage can be reduced slightly by armor, but it is still a massive amount of damage to take, particularly when you only have 5 characters fighting against a horde of enemies. You can try and negate this advantage that the enemies have by staying close to the spawn points, so that when the enemy flamers spawn, they are forced to engage in melee combat. In Gamma, you will face Chaos enemies. Easily the most dangerous of this group is the Poxwalker, who applies a 20 to 40% negative armor debuff to your team. You should always prioritize killing these whenever possible. The Chaos Guardsmen aren't really anything to worry about and should flee from battle fatigue when you kill the other 2 unit types. The last thing to highlight here is the Chaos Terminator. This unit has one main thing that you want to be mindful of, and that is their Terminator armor means they take 75% reduced damage on the first hit, unless you deal psychic or direct damage. This is particularly important for this section because they have the trait restriction of maximum 1 hit. Therefore, to overcome this section and this particular enemy, you'll want some strong psychers within your team, or you won't make much progress. That's all I've got today. An explanation of the event, infographics, character recommendations, and enemy breakdowns that you'll face for each section. If you haven't done so yet, you can enter the code on screen to earn yourself 100 Blackstone and also support me and the work that I do. It only works once, so choose wisely. Thank you to everyone that has already done so. Finally, if you're a competitive player and you're looking for a new guild to make the next step up in your gameplay, feel free to reach out to Pants of Horus via Discord link below. Thanks everyone, see you soon, bye!
Doo-doo-dee. It's Nandi!